All right, let's round out the tournament now. This is the last section, the West section, to round out all of the regions in this bracket. Honestly, gosh, I look at it now at a glance from my prediction because I'm looking at the big full picture and I feel like an idiot because the West, I think, will be the hardest one to predict the way it goes, just like the East. I know they're the number 1 seed, but I do not think that there is actually any real heavy favorites in this region, which is going to be the reason why this region will be so fun to watch. I'd say yes, Kansas is a heavily favorite number 1, but at the same time, I would say number 2 is probably UCLA or Gonzaga. Kansas and UCLA are both runners-up in their respective conference tournaments. And I've seen Kansas lose this season, I've seen UCLA lose this season, and I've seen Gonzaga lose this season. So there's not one team where I'm like, yes, they're the team. So it's a 3-headed monster, and I don't know who's going to win it. Let's shrink me down a little bit, and let's go round by round, and I'll try to give my best insight for who I think might be moving on. All right, Kansas against Buffalo. I'm going to take... No, I'm teasing. I'm going to take Kansas. Arkansas against Illinois. I'm just going to take Illinois. St. Mary versus VCU. Everybody is hitting on VCU and how VCU is going to upset St. Mary's. Not so fast. I think St. Mary's has been one of those teams recently where it's like, oh, this could be a year where they make a deep run. They never do because the WCC is absolutely stacked by Gonzaga year in and year out. And so if there was an upset for a 5, I think this is the 5 versus 12 matchup, VCU could be the one, but I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to say that St. Mary's moves on. Then UConn versus Iona. I know that one coach is coaching there at Iona, but this is UConn, so I'm going to say UConn moves on. All right, TCU versus Arizona State. Yes, in the first 4, I have Arizona State moving on in that matchup. And then out of Gonzaga versus Grand Canyon University, come on, like, Gonzaga is still Gonzaga, and so I'll have Gonzaga moving on. Northwestern versus Boise State. This is another one of those matchups where it's like, how fun would it be to watch a Mountain West team like Utah State, where I had picked Utah State beating Missouri. How fun would it be to see, you know, another small school like Boise State beat Northwestern? Northwestern did have a solid year this year in the Big Ten, so I'll have Northwestern moving on. And then out of UCLA and UNC Asheville, you know, 2 versus 15. This one doesn't scare me as much, and so I think UCLA will get the solid victory here. In the round of 32, Kansas versus Illinois, I'm going to pick Rock Chalk Jayhawk and say that they're moving on. St. Mary's versus UConn. I put a star on this one because I think this game can go either way. I don't know who could win this one. I'm going to go with my gut and say that UConn. And then out of TCU and Gonzaga, even though Gonzaga's had a quiet season versus years past, Gonzaga is still one of those elite college programs where they are a standard of their own. And so I'll have Gonzaga beating TCU. And then out of Northwestern and UCLA, I think UCLA is going to move on to the Sweet 16. I think UCLA is going to come with a lot of fire after their Pac-12 championship meltdown against Arizona. So I'll have them moving on and playing Gonzaga. Out of Kansas and UConn, I put a star on this one because I could see this being a really close game of 2 elite squads going at it. You know, UConn and their rich history, Kansas coming off of a national championship. It could go either way. I'm going to take the safe pick, and I'm going to say Kansas represents that top side of the bracket in the West Championship. And then out of UCLA and Gonzaga, it sucks that these 2 teams couldn't be in different bracket regions or meet a little bit farther down the line, because this will be, I would say, out of all the predictions that I've made, this is going to be one of, if not the biggest game to date in the tournament, because it's Gonzaga and it's UCLA, and respectfully, I think either team could win it, and I think either team could beat Kansas. Like, the winner of this game between Gonzaga and UCLA, I have them representing the West in the bracket. That's what's crazy, because it's like Drew Timme is still on Gonzaga, and Gonzaga has had a lot of recent success in the tournament history. They were the runners-up in 2021. In 2022, they fell a little bit short to the Razorbacks, but they still got Coach Few. They still got Timmy. They're not as scary as they were in years past, but they're still Gonzaga. And you can't sleep on that. Just with the seniors and the experience too on the other end with UCLA, I would say the difference in this is just the players. Player versus player. UCLA is a little bit more stacked, and so I will pick them moving on against Gonzaga, even though it's going to be a tough one, but this will be the game of the bracket. And then out of Kansas and UCLA, I think Kansas is a solid team this year, but I'm going to sleep on them just a little bit and say that they aren't the same team that they were last year when they won the title. A lot of those players that were key elements into the title run, they've left, they've gone to the NBA. But because of the experience that UCLA has, I have them moving on. And so I have UCLA representing the West in the March Madness bracket. Thanks for listening to me ramble this much about college basketball. It is the best time of the year. It is fun to do these brackets, and so hope to catch you in the next one. Deuces.